welcome to the session. It's me again. I'm here to introduce Adina Lescher, who will be moderating the panel, the Parent Track, Embracing Differences, Navigating Cleft and Adoption Journeys. So, thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, Lou. Thank you to all of you for joining us here today. My name's Adina. I am the VP of Community Development at Smile Train, and just thrilled to be with all of you. So I want to start off with a thank you to Max and Sam Rosen at CleftCon New York. In one of our discussion opportunities, you both shared a little bit about your experience with cleft and adoption and your journey with both of those identities. And we received so much feedback during that conversation and afterwards that we decided, this is really something that we have to talk about further and devote a whole session to this year. So thank you for bringing it up. And a quick plug for the CleftCon surveys. We want to hear what else you guys want to talk about next year too. So thank you for always continuing to give us feedback. Okay, so we're just going to jump right in. This is a big conversation, lots to talk about. And I'll ask each of our panelists, I'm going to let you introduce yourselves. So if you could just share your name and a little bit about your connection both to cleft and then adoption, and then we'll jump into our questions from there. So Maryann, we'll start with you.
I'm Maryann Harrison, formerly Gillette, and I am actually being connected with Monica. She was the one, I've never really heard about CleftCon until she mentioned it and asked for me to join. Oh, there's us. I forgot. Sorry, guys. So my parents actually originally really wanted to adopt a child from China. During the 1993 era, China had a lot of difficulty with adoption alone, and so they shut down. And a friend of theirs encouraged them to look into Holt International. And their friend really encouraged them to adopt a child with either special needs or facial deformities. And my parents have always wanted to do something like this because my dad is a pediatric anesthesiologist, and so he has known in the background of medical what I would need, et cetera. And so months later, they decided to put all of their paperwork in. In 6 months, I came to the U.S. To San Antonio, Texas. And so that's kind of where everything started in adoption and how I came.
Great, thank you. And Lisa.
Sure. My name is Lisa. As I mentioned earlier, I was an adoptive mom before I was a cleft mom. We've been foster parents for many years. We did not set out with the intent to adopt. We were adamant we were not going to adopt. We obviously had a different path that I would never change in a million years. So we had already adopted 3 before meeting 1. So we were not, setting out in foster care. We actually did not take in any children that were medically needy because we had a larger family. But I believe there's no mistakes, and Juan came to us for a reason. So we've been learning a lot in a very, very short amount of time. His situation is extra unique because he is part of the foster system. So we have a whole different side as far as immigration that will take many years before we can officially adopt him. So yes, our side is definitely an added challenge. Because of that and the lack of insurances and the state being involved, it changes it, a lot for us. So that's kind of how we got into the situation.
Thank you. And Max.
My name's Max Rosen. This is my son Sam, who we adopted from Bulgaria when he was almost 3 years old. We came to the adoption process through the tragedies of losing a whole bunch of pregnancies. My wife and I had 4 pregnancies. Only one made it through. That's our daughter Sydney, who's 35 now. Our last pregnancy ended in a stillborn son. And after that, we sort of went through the process of, we got to do something different. We still wanted to build a family. So after a couple of years of introspection and going to classes and so on, we decided to adopt. And part of the adoption process is you have to be honest with yourself about what it is you want out of an adoption. People who have never had a child oftentimes want to adopt a newborn baby. Do you want to go domestic? Do you want to go international? What are the factors that feed into this? in the case of Sam, we were willing to take on certain medical conditions that were correctable. And when we were presented with him as a referral to adopt from our agency, we knew he had the cleft palate. We knew from his records in Bulgaria that his lip had been repaired, but his palate was still open. And quite frankly, we were very naive about the whole thing. The people at the agency, our social worker said, cleft palate's easy. Get the surgery done, you'll be fine. Little did we know that it was multiple surgeries. And one of our big, oh wow moments was at his first cleft team session at Children's National Medical Center in Washington. And after he'd seen all the different services, and we went to see this. Then we went to see the surgeon, Mike Boyajian, who's another one of these superstars in this business. He said, "Sam, open your mouth." And Sam opened it. He goes, "Okay, put him on the schedule." And I said, "That's it? That's all you need?" He says, "Yeah." He said, "This is easy. The mechanical fix is easy, but for somebody with an open cleft palate for 3 years or longer, has no speech mechanics. Forget about learning Bulgarian or English. He had no mechanics for speech." And at that age, he said, he'll be lucky to achieve 50% of normal speech. And fortunately, we had a great speech pathologist there, and she worked with him. And one of the things they did, and we go into this further, but she had the doctor do a thing called the pharyngeal flap surgery after a couple of years, which improved the seal at the back of his throat. And he went from at that point, he was still, before the surgery, he was still having a lot of trouble with R's and L's and W's and the common letters you have difficulties with as a cleft kid. And after that surgery, within 2 weeks, he went from about 50% to 90% of speech. It was really remarkable. So that was one of our big challenges. But then over the years, I spent 10 years on the board of directors of an international adoption agency. I taught adoption classes. So if you want to talk about adoption, seek me out at lunch or dinner tonight, and I'll be happy, because I can't do it in 23 minutes and 10 seconds. Okay? So I'm happy to talk to any of y'all. Just seek me out at lunch or dinner. We'll have a conversation about adoption, about clefts, about the way of the world, whatever you want to talk about.
My name is Sam. I speak good now. I speak good. That's the joke, yeah. But no, I speak English 100%. So came to the U.S. when I was almost 3. Grew up in the D.C. area, Northern Virginia, Arlington. Lived in a lot of places, traveled a lot, and born with bilateral cleft open palates. Just proud to be here, very lucky to be here.
Great.
By the way, one quick thing, stand 1 second. I'm going to use you, stand up. When he came to us as a 3-year-old, he was 5% in height and weight, okay, on a scale. And a lot of McDonald's hamburgers and pasta and rice, and you can see he ends up at the 95th percentile mark. So, that was part of the Americanization.
Well, we're so happy to have all of you here today. Thank you. So Maryann, it would be great if you could tell us a little bit about maybe what your parents have told you about the adoption process in those initial years. What was their experience like?
So their adoption process was pretty quick. My mom actually couldn't get pregnant. She kept miscarrying, which is why adoption was always on the list on both sides. My dad is adopted and my grandma was adopted. So adoption was, as part of the family. So the way they addressed any question that I had as a child, they were very honest. They did not hide anything, and that is something I really want parents to understand. If your child asks, don't fake it. And I hear a lot of lies that our parents do now these days, and that breaks my heart. Don't lie, because your child is going to find out at some point. So thankfully, my parents were very encouraging. They knew that any question that I had, they would sit down. They would take the time to sit down. They wouldn't look at their phones or anything like that. They would sit down. They would show me pictures. And then anytime I compared, I still compare myself to this day. But anytime I compared, my parents would always say, yeah, but you are you. So you can be you. You can go change the world. And they always encouraged me to not be afraid to speak for me and to stand up for me. And if any child, were to bully or whatever, obviously you address it with the parents, etc. Thanks, Matt.
Absolutely. And I'm going to ask you a follow-up question too. It's impossible to pull out different strands of our identities, of course. But how do you feel that being adopted and having a cleft affected you growing up? Did one make the other more or less challenging? How did those two pieces really inform you as you developed?
So I am very blessed to know that the family that I have been given by God's grace is that they have been there since day one. And that encouraged me to find out who I am now as an adult. It definitely was challenging to have a cleft lip and palate for sure as a kid, especially in middle school and high school. I mean, girls are mean in general. Oh my gosh. It was just, I hated it. I hate it. So I would actually try to find myself a group that was safe. And I would also encourage, young teenagers to find yourself that's safe environment. And also to educate yourself, find books. Don't go to social media. That just tires me out. I'm in the medical world, and I always tell all my patients, do not read Google. Go to people that have been through this experience and talk to them. They're going to tell you the true stories. And my parents specifically were very, very careful about not overprotecting. They actually wanted me to kind of go out and figure out how much damage I can do. So they said, go live your life. And that's what I did.
And I have a question that we didn't talk about
Yes.
before. I'm totally going to put you on the
no.
spot here. You have two brothers as well,
Yes.
is that right? So a conversation I just had with someone out in the hallway, and I'm a sibling of a cleft-affected individual too, is can you speak a little bit, have you talked to them about their experience being the siblings of someone who's cleft-affected? Can you speak to that at all?
So they haven't really expressed. They were always very, very protective. My brothers were very protective of me. We have never really sat down as a brother and sister talk, which I should probably do that. But my understanding is that they don't care. I'm their sister that's annoying and loud and whatever, and argue with them, and the typical family environment. And I do know that both of my brothers, especially the day of my wedding, they did come up to me and said that they were very proud of me for coming this far. And they were so glad that I am their sister, regardless of the color and the way I look. And so when I look back at my wedding picture, I'm like, damn, that's me, and those are my brothers that, they were obviously born from my biological mom, adopted mom. And, but they never saw me as an individual. They always welcomed me for who I am. And I think that's a beautiful thing. Oh, yeah.
Well, maybe we can get her wedding photo back up here because it is so gorgeous. And thank you for sharing this. And I know your wonderful husband is here. And I hope that your entire family comes to the next CleftCon
Yes,
because I think we all want to meet them too.
And both of my brothers are actually, they're priests. So they have now that they're priests, their hearts have been a little bit more soft. So we have had a few conversations. We have had a conversation or two about how to deal with bullying, especially in high school. My oldest brother, the one on the very far right in the navy blue suit, I remember one time I was really upset about a girl who told me that I looked like a freaking Frankenstein and that I needed to go to a concentration camp. And that has always stuck to me. So I sat down with him and he said, I still love you. And you're my sister and I will always support you. So, gosh dang it. I don't have waterproof mascara.
Teresa's going to go get her, yeah. Well, Maryann, thank you so much for sharing. So Lisa, in your keynote, you shared your process of adopting Juan is still underway. As you mentioned in your intro, it's going to be a complicated road, most likely from a paperwork perspective, although he's certainly already your son. I think we can all see that. Can you share a little bit about some of the challenges of adopting a cleft-affected child versus one who isn't?
I think for sure with Juan, had he not have been cleft affected, we probably would not be going through the whole process of doing a formal adoption. We would have just gotten legal guardianship so we can be done with the state and the government and walked away. But because of Juan's, like I said, his case is extremely, extremely unique. And so we kind of need that umbrella of going through the process of at least having the state somewhat on our side because of his medical needs. If we were just to do guardianship, everything would be out of pocket for us. He would never get insurance ever.
And I think everyone in this room can appreciate
Yes,
the cost
so that's
involved
yes.
with that.
So even though the state hasn't really helped me much, when I do need them, they have come through. So for us, the adoption side, we are, like I said, still seeking that route just to get paperwork more official. And for Juan, I mean, this is obviously something that, you don't just deal with when you're a child. This is, lifelong. So for him, getting things in order now as much as we can has been very important. Whereas with our other kiddos, it was so much more cut and dry because there are no medical needs. I mean, yes, everyone in mental health and coming from hard places, but his is so different that we've made sure to really be open to that and be understanding to that and really push for that, because the state has pushed very hard for us to just be guardians, to be, one less kiddo that they have. And I get that. I don't want to deal with them. They don't want to deal with me. So I understand. But yes, his situation is so unique, and then tie in the medical needs has made it a little bit more interesting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we talk about the cleft journey and how all-consuming and how that can be such a lifelong process. Adoption is the same. You're truly on a journey.
Yes.
And I don't want to get lost. Can you describe some of the joyful moments that you've experienced with Juan? It can be cleft related or not.
Yes. For him, it's like, he's only been with us, but he's only been in our home for 18 months, but it's really like he's always been there. As I stated earlier, like we had, you think you're going to do things a certain way or adopt a certain kid or, from a certain place, and then you find yourself in this situation that you were maybe fearful of. But it's amazing how when you just open yourself up to that it all works out. You get connected with people that you never thought, connections were not even possible. And it really, it just encouraged us even more to kind of get out of our comfort zone, even though we've been out of our comfort zone for many years with such a big family. It really encouraged us even more to see him instantly so comfortable with us. Within a few months, we were mom and dad. He never, there wasn't any differences there. My children were all extremely welcoming. That's all they've known is foster care, so our door has always been revolving. But for us, Juan is our kiddo, and just the smiles and every milestone he hits just makes all of it, who cares about all the paperwork and the, all the things that are still to come, but just his smiling face and knowing that, his life is forever changed, and not just because of our yes to take him, but by the people who have opened doors to get us help. I think that has been, definitely the biggest blessing. For us and for him, even though he is still only 9, he might not realize some of the things that I feel for him that are still to come with middle school and high school. But right now he's happy, and I'm just excited for him.
Okay, well, thank you so much. And Max, it'd be great to hear a little more from you. Thank you for sharing kind of the genesis of your adoption journey. What were those first few years like as you navigated your new child and his cleft treatment?
So when Sam first came to us, it was kind of funny in a way because my wife actually went over to Bulgaria and got him. So he spent a week in Bulgaria with Catherine. The way Bulgaria worked, by the time she went over to get him, it was already done from the Bulgarian government side. Okay, as far as the Bulgarian government was concerned, he was already ours. And But the paperwork he had to go through there was U.S. Embassy paperwork, getting him his passport. When you come from another country, you basically come with a green card. Okay, so he traveled here on a green card, and then we had to go through the process of getting him naturalized and getting him a certificate of citizenship, making him a U.S. citizen. Again, it's just another part of the process. And then the third thing we did was to hire a lawyer in Virginia to do the paperwork to get him a Virginia birth certificate, which is a little different from a regular birth certificate. I think it's called a certificate of live birth or something, because it still shows Varna, Bulgaria as his birthplace. But we wanted him to have a hunk of U.S. paperwork that would be with him the rest of his life, and it comes in handy for things like when he got a driver's license and other things. Although I think when you got your TSA approval, didn't they not like that? They wanted some other. They wanted their
Actual Bulgarian, I think, birth certificate.
Yeah, show that too. So, you have to, there is an administrative drill involved. When he got in the house, anyway, we were home for a week, then we went to the beach for 2 weeks with my whole family. Then we came back to our house, and so he probably sitting there thinking, he didn't know where he was, this was all new, but he was a very introspective child, he was really curious. But the one challenge we had initially was with our daughter. When she went to bed at night, there was story time, there was music, there was lights, there was all this stuff that she did to go to sleep. Well, we tried to do the same thing with him, and he'd stay wide awake. And I'd sit in his room with him, rocking him in a rocking chair for hours, trying to get him to go to sleep. And after a few weeks, we happened to talk to one of our Bulgarian coordinators, and he said, how's it going? I said, everything's going great, except for can't get him to sleep at night. And I explained what we were doing. He goes, oh, no, Max, that's when he's ready for bed, put him in bed, pat him on the back, turn out the light, close the door. That's what they did in Bulgaria. And the first time we did it, sound asleep, right on the spot. And as we like to say, Sam, from day one, there was no, again, like with you, there were no secrets. He knows where he came from. And we always kind of tease that with Sydney, our daughter, we didn't know what we were getting when she was born, right? she came out, we got what we got. I always say Sydney's the reason some species eat their young, okay? Because she's a challenging one. But so she's our bio kid. Sam is the chosen one. Okay? We chose him as our son. So he has that distinction. And life in our house was always kind of compared. We're like the Bundys. The two kids, they love each other, but they fight like cats and dogs. But when somebody from the outside does something to one of the other one really sticks up for them. So, you can't ask for more. You can't ask for much more than that with your kids. Is that they look out for each other, they stick up for each other, and he may have a different opinion on that. But
And actually, Sam, we'd love to hear from you.
One more quick thing. We talk about him learning English even before he had the palate fixed. We had Sesame Street on TV all the time. And the kids had the tape of the 25th anniversary of Les Mis, okay, the one from the Royal Albert Hall in England. And my kids love Les Mis. Sydney loves Les Mis. Sam loves Les Mis. They watched it endlessly. And so I always say that between Elmo and Jean Valjean, that's how Sam learned English. Yeah.
All right, Sam, let's hear your version of all of that.
So weirdly enough, with cleft, with surgeries, socializing, all that, adoption was always in the back burner. So it wasn't. It's like you're already doing so much stuff. So I actually kept that very quiet for so long because I was already getting negative attention, all that, and I think some people didn't really think I looked nothing like them. So because I had other distractions for my facial difference. So. I think it was. I kind of look at cleft lip and palate as how to love yourself on the outside, and that's what it teaches you. And the adoption was what teaches you on your inside. So I think that's how I kind of took it. I didn't talk about Bulgaria or a lot of that because I really didn't know a whole lot anyway until high school. I started to kind of do the more research as resources were a whole lot better at 2010, 2011 at that point. And I saw like some of the paperwork I've looked at through Bulgaria, and it kind of made me go like, find the positives, but there were the negatives, but try to analyze, absorb it, and once you kind of accepted that part, it became a lot more comfortable as a whole. And so that gave us self-confidence, actually. I think that was kind of the thing I was missing a little bit. And so I talk about all the time, and actually my shoes are, so I did this with Nike. It was a Bulgarian whole thing on my shoes.
Cool.
I also got like a Bulgarian tattoo theme. So it's like, up until 18, I would never do any of that, you know. And now it's just like,
And
all
I did,
about it.
I did take him back to Bulgaria. He graduated from high school.
so you'll actually, the photo just below the suit to the right is actually the people that helped me when I was actually the Mother and Child Center. And they say they actually remember me from 15 years ago. So that was pretty cool. And so we donated some money and time with them going back. So that was pretty special. So it was a wonderful thing. And I did actually meet a kid, the same center I was in, that actually had an unfixed cleft lip and palate.
He was about the same age as you were.
Right,
He was like
and
2 years old.
he was almost, like light brown hair like I was. So it was a very weird full circle
It's like looking at the
a moment. And so that probably gave me a second of thinking about like what to do next after I supported Smile Train in high school. And then years later, after I stopped, I kept moving around a lot. And I decided to go back and do something like Smile Train. So now that was settled. So
Well, we're lucky to have you on our CCAC. Thank you very much. And I know we just have a few minutes left, but I'd love to hear from each of you, just from everything you've been through. What are your words of wisdom to share? Who's going to start there, Lisa?
I would just say to get out of your comfort zones. I think, being cleft affected and whether it's yourself or your children, you're already out of your comfort zone anyways. And there's so many kiddos out there, and maybe, adoption isn't your path, but even finding ways to be advocates and to just help those kids navigating tough times and navigating high school years and middle school years. We're obviously huge advocates for helping those within your community, and I think everyone would be surprised how many children are within our own communities, that aren't, miles and miles away, that really need our help. And I just think getting out of your comfort zone really helps. And also finding people, finding communities. As I mentioned, we're in a very small area, so we don't really have anyone that we can call or get in contact with, but finding people here and making those connections and getting those phone numbers and just making sure that you always have somebody to kind of reassure you, maybe offer some guidance, maybe just listen and say, I have no idea what you're going to do, but at least they were an ear to listen. I think things like that really help.
Thank you.
So I was discussing about this earlier with somebody. I encourage counseling. Make sure you get yourself counseling. Even if you are the parent itself, get counseling, because there's going to be things as a parent, which I'm not a parent yet, but I've heard so many stories, and I was a former school teacher. As a parent, you're gonna have certain things that are gonna trigger yourself as a child. So make sure you get counseling for yourself, but also encourage your kids to be counseled as well. And find something that your child likes. I love music. Music speaks to me a lot. I write my own music. And so my parents encouraged that, and they wanted to make sure that I could be able to speak without having to speak through my music and dancing as well. So encourage your kids. Don't find their talent, and then help them along the way and give them that support.
Thank you. Sam?
yeah, I was gonna say music is definitely a big one. I didn't go counseling until I was 20. I think honestly it's just because of the whole also family stuff. There's a long list of reasons really. But music was definitely carrying me throughout that. I was definitely more able to speak for yourself better than a lot of things. It was also because a lot of people didn't understand anyway, so I didn't really see the point to go professional at the time of that age anyway. So, but definitely go do that. Movies, music, pop culture, find your group. I was so into hockey. I made it a career for a bit, so like that helped immensely. Playing on sports teams, finding commonality is a big thing. And also just the comfort level of yourself. Like, you'd be surprised, people might find, coming from the Philippines is really cool, or, Bulgaria or Guatemala, and I think that's a big thing. It's like, of course, I love my parents, and like they are my parents, but at the same time, it's like the Bulgarians still got me to this point. There's also other people throughout your lifetime you gotta recognize. So that's a big thing as well.
Thank you. Max, do you have anything to add?
I don't know that much more to add to that. Just, you know, when it comes to the adopting somebody with a cleft, make yourself knowledgeable about what's going on. I mean, we certainly did. Not that it would have made a difference, but we had a lot of oh wow moments through our process because we just kind of went with the flow. And fortunately, we had a great team around us, you know, on the medical side of things, and that made it a lot easier over the years.
All really valuable advice. Thank you all so much.